Welcome to the Story a Day podcast. This is Julie Duffy, encouraging you to be a writer today, not someday. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Story a Day podcast. In fact, welcome back to the podcast, which was on vacation last week. I am not sure if you're like me. Is your inbox full of people asking you to do a mid-year review? Maybe just because I'm on some business lists, but they're very hot on this idea of doing a mid-year review, like we all did kind of our January plan or December, January, what I'm going to achieve next year. Apparently it's a thing in the end of June and July to revisit that, which is actually pretty smart. So I'm going to remind those of you who downloaded the annual planning bundle in December or January of this year and worked through it and got your pace yourself goals done and, started making Swagger, Serious Writers Accountability Group monthly plans and maybe tailed off a little as the year rubbed off some of its freshness, that you might want to go back and look at those documents and figure out what it was that you had planned to do at the beginning of the year, how you're getting on, how you might change that. If you've joined me recently and didn't have an opportunity to download those documents, you can do that at a link in the show notes. It's going to be storyaday.org/annual plan. And there's 4 worksheets in there that you can use. One is for working out what you want to achieve and crucially why it's important to you. And another one is going to be the monthly Serious Writers Group, Serious Writers Accountability Group, Swagger tracking sheet, which I always promise you can download on the first of the month. And I think the links have been broken for the last couple of months. So that's fixed now. But if you haven't been able to get that tracking sheet, you can get it from the annual plan documents. There is also, importantly, a sheet with big stars on it where you can track your triumphs, track your celebrations, write down what you're achieving as you're achieving it so that you don't take it for granted. Very, very important when building a habit to celebrate and tell your brain, yay, well done you. So that's all in that annual planning document. And you can go back and get yourself a copy of it at the link in the notes, which will be storyaday.org/annual plan. And you can download those and print them or put them on your iPad and scribble on them with your stylus if you like to do it that way. It's a PDF document. Okay, so thinking about going back to your goals and your plan might have some of you feeling a bit shifty because you haven't done the things that you wanted to get done in your writing this year. And I would encourage you to be okay with that. Like, you can't change the past. There's no point beating yourself up about it. You can figure out what got in your way and how you can get around that for the next 6 months. Or you can just make a whole new, slate of goals for the next 6 months based on what you've learned. Like, you've learned that you can't write 4 novels in 6 months, and maybe that's okay. Maybe you've learned that you don't really want to be writing novels, or that you don't really want to be writing complete pieces, or maybe you've learned that you do want to be publishing. Whatever you've learned in the last 6 months, let's apply it to the next 6 months. One of the reasons I like to write things down is that I have learned, as someone who is very in the moment, that planning and structure can be quite freeing. I resisted this for a long time, and I don't think that a structure in your writing life needs to be rigid. In fact, it probably can't be. Well, for some people it might be. I'm not saying you have to write down that you're going to get up and write from 6 till 7 every morning, or that you're going to write 1,000 words every day, or that you're even going to write every day. I'm talking about the kind of structure that, whatever it looks like for you, makes it easy for you to get to the good parts of writing. So maybe that's outlining a novel, or outlining the next quarter of a story, or planning to be at your desk at a certain time 4 days a week. Whatever that structure is that just takes away decisions and makes it easier for you to get straight to the creative work, that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. You'll know if you've been listening to this for any length of time or coming to the blog that I have this framework which I've put under my own writing and I've introduced to other people, and I call it the iWriter framework. And it's all about looking at the different aspects of the life of being a writer and cycling through each of the pieces in that acronym at different stages for different projects. But it basically helps break down writing into different skills, disciplines, pieces, and consequently it helps to limit your overwhelm, because you're not thinking about, I need to write and publish a story and promote it and all of that stuff. You're thinking about the drafting phase, or you're thinking about revision, or you're thinking about engaging with the publishing part of the business or engaging with other people. So what I'm going to do, with this being kind of the second half of the year just starting, what I wanted to do is take you through, over the next week, I want to take you through how I would plan out a 6-week writing push. And if you are interested in thinking about how to structure your next 6 weeks of writing, or a 6-week period of writing, I'm going to invite you to come over to the second link in the show notes there, which is going to let you sign up for my upcoming Your Writing Life series. It's a series of 4 lessons, and they're each of them about the length of this podcast. And I'll send you an invitation to come every day, not every day, 4 days this week, and listen to me talking about how I would structure a writing life, how I would structure a 6-week writing push to get 10 stories written in that time. And during that Writing Life series, I'm going to give you the full outline of how you can do that. There's going to be a PDF download. There's going to be like a timeline for each of the weeks if you want to write 10 stories in 6 weeks. And I'm going to walk you through the whole process. And it's not just about writing 10 stories, though that is a wonderful byproduct of going through this process. It's also about building a writing routine, a structure that holds you to your goals, because you know you want to be writing. It keeps coming back and it won't let you go. And you can learn about writing in bits and pieces, and you can take classes, and you can read books. I'm reading a fabulous book on storytelling at the moment, but you need to actually put the work in, do the writing, and it's just so much easier when you have goals and a framework and a plan. So sign up for Your Writing Life series and give me like 15 minutes, 4 days this week. Listen to me burbling on while you're folding laundry or doing the dishes or whatever it is that you do that you don't want to be doing. You can put on this series and just listen to these bite-sized lessons about building a writing life that I think will serve you well, because I've seen it serve other people well. It's always fun to get feedback on this, and people are always excited to see the possibilities that they really can fit writing into their life. So come over to that link and sign up for the Your Writing Life series, and I will send you lessons this week, and let's go from there. So I have a writing prompt for you, and this week I've been thinking a lot about character and our identity and how we tell stories to ourselves. That's one of the reasons I want you to do some planning, because I think it's important that you tell a story to yourself, that you are a writer. But if you think about how humans construct the world, the reason that we like stories is because we create worlds in our heads and we construct ourselves, we construct our own sense of self from the stories that we tell about ourselves. And this is true for your characters as well. And one of the ways to find a character flaw is it doesn't have to be something big and dramatic. It can simply be that your character has built a construct of the world, of themselves, of their values, of their identity, which is very rigid. And perhaps it's not accurate, or it's not serving them anymore. But psychologists know that we tell ourselves stories about events that make them fit into our worldview. It's how we can have such radically different political opinions. It's why people raised with a particular set of values get very prickly when you try to change their minds about it. It's why when a minority group starts to assert their rights to be treated like everyone else, it clashes with the values that people have in their heads. And it's not that those people are bad people, but they have stories that they've told themselves about how the world works, and changing that stuff is hard because we know how the world is supposed to work and we tend to think that we're right. So I want you to tell a story this week with a single character. An incident happens to them and they tell the story at 3 different times in their life. The way they tell the story is going to be shaped by their values and experiences. It's going to be shaped by whether it's important to them at these various stages in their life that they hew closely to the values they understood when they were first experiencing it. Whether those values and their view of the world and their place in the world, that's all going to shape how they tell the story. Something happens, maybe they bump into somebody else's car and they don't leave a note. So they will justify that to themselves by saying, oh, well, it was a Mercedes. That person can afford the repair costs better than I can. So they're telling this story to a friend about what they did and they're justifying their behaviour. Then maybe in middle age, maybe when they are wealthy, somebody scratches their car, their Mercedes, and they see it from a different point of view. And it reminds them of this incident in their childhood. So they're telling this story to an acquaintance and beginning to have to reevaluate the event that happened to them when they were younger, and maybe they tell the story a different way to this acquaintance, this wealthy acquaintance, that one of their peers, and they'll still have to. Will they still justify their behaviour? And will it sound different from when they were younger? Then I want you to jump forward in time again to when this person is elderly, and they're talking maybe to a grandchild, maybe to, I don't know, somebody. And they're talking about this incident again for some reason. How are they going to remember it? And we really do remember things differently at different times in our lives. So I want you to have this character tell the same story of something that happened. It could be they're telling just a story, but at 3 different stages in their life, they're going to be telling it differently. And each of those things, each of those tellings or memories of the event are going to be affected by where the character is in their life now, what they've learned, how their worldview has changed. And I think it would be really interesting if you don't really explain that, but just allow the reader to infer what's happened. So in my example, maybe I wouldn't point out that my character got wealthy and now drives a Mercedes themselves. Maybe I would leave that for the reader to infer. And remember, with short stories, the format doesn't have to be narrative like a novel. You don't have to have transitions, and you don't have to say 45 years later. You can just jump, and you can just have a line break and start a new section, and the reader has to put together what's in the gap. So, one character telling the same story at 3 different ages. How has their memory changed? What has that been affected by in their lives? And what can you leave out for the reader to infer about that? That's your writing prompt for this week. Don't forget to come over to the blog and download those planning documents and sign up for the Your Writing Life series, which is coming up. And I will speak to you again next week. I hope you have a great creative week. And of course, keep writing. Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week, and of course, keep writing.